The Irish are off and rolling.
Did he catch it? Yes!
A spring in their step as they bounce their way into the top 10.
Spirits and hopes are sky high around the bend, but this season is still very young. There is still so much more to prove.
We've celebrated it and we loved it and it was great, but we're just 1-0 and we got 11 more to go.
The first of those 11 this afternoon with Ball State, and the Irish can't look past those downstate neighbors, can't let up.
Every day we're an attack unit. We're a bunch of lions, dogs, whatever you want to call it.
So will they bring that intensity and ruffle the Cardinals' feathers?
We're here to find out.
Live from Notre Dame Stadium, this is News Center 16's Countdown to Kickoff.
Tens of thousands of Irish faithful are back on campus for the second straight week with a gleam in their eyes and smiles on their faces. The folks in blue, gold, and green have a lot to be happy about on another September Saturday here in South Bend.
And now, my friends, you are looking live from high above at some of the celebrations, and we bring you inside Notre Dame Stadium now, where the number 8 Fighting Irish of Notre Dame welcome a first-time guest to the house that Rockne built, the Cardinals of Ball State.
Good afternoon and welcome to News Center 16's Countdown to Kickoff. I'm Alex Wilcox.
And I'm WHME Sports Director Chuck Freeby. We start with the good mood felt across Irish Nation. Amazing what a season-opening win over Michigan will do for the Spirits. Alex, we sat here about a week ago with trepidation, wondering just how good this Notre Dame team is.
Yep.
I think we still have a question of just how good they are because it's only one win, and no team has ever gotten to the college football playoff with one win. But if Michigan is what we think they are, that's a pretty good Irish team.
Absolutely. Michigan was ranked number 14 for a reason. The Irish now vaulted into the top 10. Everyone was talking about the Wolverines' defense and how good they were. The very first 2 drives of the Notre Dame offense, led by Brandon Wimbush, resulted in touchdowns. The Notre Dame defense looked good against a good quarterback in Shea Patterson. This game got a lot of hype going here in South Bend, and for good reason.
But if you're feeling good about the win over Michigan, then you have to worry about what might happen today as Ball State comes to town, and that's mainly a letdown. Brian Kelly talked about his team's focus this week. He said that they believe in the process and all those coaching phrases that we're used to hearing, but to a certain extent, they come to fruition in a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, you can just look around. Last week, there was a buzz in this stadium. There was an energy. You could feel it. It was palpable. This week, not so much. The stadium just feels a little sleepy. And, I mean, when you come off a big emotional win like last week, it's only natural to have a sort of letdown game, especially when you have a lesser opponent coming in Ball State. But the Irish need to lock in and focus, put these guys away early, and don't let Ball State hang around in this one.
And if they do that and all goes to plan, today might be a day where Irish fans get to see some rather unfamiliar faces out on the field, some of the newer faces around this Irish program. Again, Brian Kelly didn't want to really talk about that during the week and said he wanted to give due respect to Ball State. That's understandable, but a lot of fans would like a chance to see what some of these freshmen, and particularly that one, Mr. Phil Jurkovec, a quarterback, can do.
With the new redshirt rule, freshmen and really anyone is allowed to play 4 games without burning that year of eligibility. Coaches love that rule because exactly 4 games like this, you get the opportunity to see some of your freshmen, such as quarterback Phil Jurkovec, that a lot of fans are very excited about, but not just Jurkovec, a lot of other freshmen as well. It's safety Houston Griffith, the Adamola twins along the defensive line, maybe some wide receivers, Braden Lindsay, Lawrence Keys, guys like that, so you can play them in these games, get them some very good experience, but at the same time still preserve that year of eligibility.
Well, those aren't the only guys making their first appearance in the stadium. This is Ball State's first trip to Notre Dame Stadium. But should there be more from them and other Hoosier State teams in the future? That's the topic of today's Lock Monday Auto Group Irish fan poll at WNDU.com.
That's where we're asking you, should Notre Dame play a team from Indiana every season? Right now, most of you, 68%, say yes, while just 32% say no. There's still plenty of time to vote in the Lock Monday Auto Group Irish fan poll on WNDU.com. We'll have the final results at about 3:19. We're just getting rolling on this afternoon's edition of The Countdown. Up next, I'll take a closer look at one of the stars from last week, Jafar Armstrong.
And then it's our Irish Illustrated report. We break down Brandon Wimbush's season opening performance and his development with Irish Illustrated writer Tim O'Malley.
You can subscribe to Irish Illustrated, the #1 source for Notre Dame sports online. Just head to irishillustrated.com and click on Join to find the best plan for you.
And here is your first Subway trivia question. Notre Dame and Purdue, of course, have a long history. But when was the last time the Irish played a team other than Purdue from the state of Indiana, and what was the result? We give you the answer when the countdown returns in 2 minutes.
Here is your Subway trivia answer.
The last time Notre Dame played a team other than Purdue from the state of Indiana, it was the IU Hoosiers. The Cream and Crimson came here for a visit September 7th, 1991. That game will always be remembered for one of the most impressive touchdowns you'll ever see, as Irv Smith carried half the Hoosier defense more than 20 yards into the end zone. And Lou's Lads cruised easily, winning 49-27. Boy, isn't it great to hear the late, great Dick Enberg on the call. First game, by the way, that NBC did here at the stadium. Well, back on the countdown with one of the breakout stars of the Irish. In the season opener, it was Jafar Armstrong.
He had a lot of Irish fans excited about his potential this offseason, and he certainly didn't disappoint last week.
I'm definitely going to be, talking about this for the rest of my life.
He's not the only one. After his 2-touchdown performance against Michigan last week, it'll be a long time before many Irish fans forget his heroics in the win over the Maize and Blue. For Jafar, though, his first start left him nearly speechless.
It's a dream come true. I was trying to find motivation for this week and just try to find ways to calm myself. And I think that, everything every workout, every game I've ever played was to get to this moment.
Going into the opener, Coach Kelly didn't know if Armstrong would have 2 carries, let alone 2 touchdowns. Instead, he carried the rock 15 times, the most for a running back and second only to Brandon Wimbush's 19.
He's an elite football player. He's just really raw. He runs, as you see, high, but he can catch it, and he's physical, and he's game. I mean, he'll go as long and as hard as he can, and you love that about players that just don't get tired. He has that kind of cardiac ability.
His greatest ability may just be that durability. All summer, Kelly has raved about Armstrong's seemingly endless motor, a motor forged when he didn't see the field as a freshman.
Any way that you can get yourself seen, no matter what it is, that's how you do it. My goal from last year, I'm not playing last year. I said, you know what? It was my time to practice, my time to get reps. I'm going to go every single rep 100% so it shows on film, whoever sees it, and, I get noticed. You got to go 100% in practice so when the game comes, you're not lagging. That's why I go hard every time 100%.
And after splitting time at wide receiver and running back last year, he hopes Saturday's performance answered any remaining questions.
I'm definitely running back now.
Now we'll just see if Brian Kelly, coordinator Chip Long, and the rest of the offensive staff agree by how they use Armstrong today. Well, it's time now for our Irish Illustrated report, and Tim O'Malley joins us on the countdown. Tim, thanks for joining us. First off, let's start with the injury last week to defensive tackle Myron Tugavola Amosa. How does that loss impact the Irish defense?
You can go MTA is how we cheat sometimes when we use his name, but it's he's their playmaker of the reserves. He is their best interior playmaker. Now, I think it's an injury that will more affect them if there's further attrition because, Jerry Tillery's the starter. They're going to bring in Jason Adamalola, a highly touted freshman backup. That's okay right now. It's if there's more injuries along the way where you really start to miss a guy like that.
Other side of the ball, what kind of development did you see from Brandon Wimbush?
Well, I think the important development would be what we see now because he was under fire last week. I think you give Brandon Wimbush an A for competitive leadership. for playmaking ability. I don't know what you grade him as a passer, though, but you're not always going to be facing that type of pressure either. So in a game like this, I think Brian Kelly wants to see Wimbush hit the short, hot routes, good timing in the screen games, run everything properly, make it a smooth operation, because obviously he can make plays with his legs. It's probably preferred if he doesn't have to run 16 times versus Miami or versus Ball State. You know, they played Miami of Ohio last year, and it was one of his most inefficient games. Yeah. Even though they scored 52 points, you know, I think the coaches look at things differently than we do in that situation.
Sure.
And now, if everything goes according to plan, hopefully Brandon Wimbush doesn't have to play the whole game. Maybe you can pull him out early, play maybe Phil Dracovic or some of the freshmen. Is there any group of freshmen that you're particularly looking forward to seeing today?
Well, I think Dracovic is number one, because this new relaxed freshman redshirt rule that allows them to play 4 games and still maintain a year of eligibility, it's the best for coaches, it's great for players, and it's great for fans, because you can kind of see the future of Notre Dame football in Dracovic. I think Shane Simon, number 33 at linebacker, is the guy they wanted to get in last week, but it was Michigan. It was kind of let's get through this game and then get some of our young talent on the field. He'll definitely play special teams, and I think you'll see him play linebacker, because Tavon Coney and Drew Tranquil can't play the whole game, every game all year. And Simon's a guy that you want to get him in, and a couple of the backups that aren't freshmen, Jordan Jenmark-Heath, and then true freshman Bo Bauer. Some of those guys are your starting linebackers next year. Right. This is the best time to get them started out.
You know, last week when we asked you for a game prediction, it was like, ooh, is he going to take Notre Dame or is he going to take Michigan? This week, let's be honest, are they going to cover the spread?
Yeah, it's part of this is kind of the internal struggle of, can you play hard for 60 minutes in this situation where it's a polar opposite than last week, where the energy was ridiculous last week. It's kind of be up to them to keep it going. You know, I think it's going to be in that 52-13, 52-20 range, where it's, does the Notre Dame second-string defense continue to play well the entire game, because you know the first unit is going to really bother Ball State's offense.
Well, a lot of teams scored over 50 against the Cardinals last year. Mike News got some reclamation to do on defense. Tim, thank you very much for being with us. A reminder, you can subscribe to Irish Illustrated. It is the #1 source for Notre Dame sports online. All you got to do is go to irishillustrated.com, click on join, find the best plan for you. We're about a quarter of the way into the countdown, and up next, a huge homecoming for one of the Cardinals.
Tackle Danny Pinter grew up an Irish fan in South Bend. Today he starts for Ball State. We hear from him, his parents, and his high school coach on a very memorable afternoon, coming up in 2 minutes on the Countdown. Back on the Countdown with the huge homecoming as 4 Ball State players return to their hometown to take on Notre Dame today, including Danny Pinter.
Yeah, Pinter starred at South Bend Adams as a high school tight end. He signed with Ball State 3 years ago. Since then, he's bulked up. Last winter, he put on 27 pounds in just 23 days and moved to tackle for the Cardinals. That hard work earns him a start today in his hometown, where he is loyal to the soil. A big point of pride for those in Pinter's camp.
I have a lot of people, friends and family, that are going to be there. I don't know an exact number. I've had a lot of people text me this week. But yeah, they're definitely excited. It's been something past couple of years. Every time I go home, people ask me about it, so it's going to be a cool experience.
And that experience is going to be extra cool for a few people decked out in red in the stands with the last name Pinter.
The Countdown's Lindsay Stone joins us. And Lindsay, you spent some time this week with the people who care most about Danny.
That is exactly right, Chuck and Alex. Today is a sensational day, years in the making, for Danny's mom and dad and his high school coach.
We've had this circle on this stage for a long time.
Good. Strike. I like it, Danny. I like it.
For a kid who grew up just a few miles from Notre Dame Stadium.
Okay, Danny Pinter, good. Next group.
Danny Pinter always dreamed about what it would be like to play on this stage. Today, he gets his chance.
You know, here at John Adams, he was one of those persons that helped lead the way to accomplish the things that we did here at Adams.
Danny was a standout at Adams before committing to Ball State.
Danny found out right after signing day that Ball State would play Notre Dame.
Go.
Setting up this thrilling day for the Pinter family.
It's very exciting for us because it's hometown. It's, all the connections with Notre Dame. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I'm a Notre Dame grad. It certainly runs in my family.
But Danny says after midnight last Saturday, his family's fan loyalties have to be put on hold.
Okay, here we go.
Dad's fine with that.
I hope Notre Dame wins every game except one this year. And we'll be in red. We'll stick out at the game.
Filled with pride, like so many of Danny's family, friends, and former coaches.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime memory to run out on the Notre Dame football field, to play on that football field, to play against the competition and the level.
I told him, I said, just try and take a few minutes and just take it in when you can.
Everybody there in the community that's watched this kid grow up to then turn around and come back and play against Notre Dame. Yeah, it's going to be one of those memories that him and his family will never forget.
Coach Redmond said his favorite memory of Danny was during his senior season at John Adams when he dislocated his finger earlier in the game. Now the team was in an important third down and had to throw the ball. Danny runs up, unrolls his finger and says, "Coach, put me in." He ends up catching the next ball and puts the team ahead, and just a glimpse of the toughness of Danny Pinter.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. I talked to Danny on the field just a little bit before we went on the air. He's very excited. He has come a long way since carrying the McFadden boys on that St. Anthony ICCL team.
Terry was telling me about that team earlier this week. Still a point of pride for him, and such a great story for all of South Bend and, of course, all of his family and friends in attendance today.
Absolutely.
Well, we've still got a lot more to come as the countdown steams along this afternoon.
There was a lot to love about the Irish last week. Kickoff coverage was not part of that. What are they doing to fix struggling special teams when the countdown comes back in 2 minutes?
Back on the countdown with quick hits, and we start with an area where the Irish definitely struggled last week, special teams. On no play was that more obvious than Ambry Thomas's 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown with just under 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. That cut the score to 21-10 and gave Michigan some life headed into the half. It's a glaring example of what needs to be fixed.
I think what we can do better from our standpoint. As we continue to grow the attention to detail in special teams. We have guys that are anxious and need to just focus on our process and relax and just have an attention to detail. There's certainly a lot of really good players on that group, but the attention to detail is not where it needs to be. So we've got to be better there.
Kelly also says that he wants to stick with Jonathan Dorer on kickoffs and not turn to Justin Yoon.
Much of the talk last week was on the Irish quarterback situation. Entering the season opener, there was a lot of uncertainty, but Brandon Wimbush seems to have put those questions to bed, at least for now. He played a serviceable game, 170 yards and a touchdown through the air, 59 yards on 19 carries on the ground. Now it's time to build off of that.
For the quarterback room, the word of the week was efficiency. So I think, just being more efficient with everything that we do, whether it's, taking a drop, the little details, or finding completions that are there and putting the ball on the guys, so where they can run and get yards after the catch. So we know what we have to work on, and I think we've done a good job of that this week, preparing for, like Drew said, a very capable Ball State team.
By and large, he's been a good decision maker. Accuracy, confidence, those things were on the up. But he was another guy that had a great week of practice. His energy, his demeanor, you could sense that he felt really good about what he was going to do, and I think that's going to continue to go.
And with Brandon Wimbush is where we start a little game we like to call Buy or Sell here on the countdown. So with Mr. Wimbush, here's a simple question. Will he start every game?
I'm going to buy this. If you asked me last week, I would have sold it because of all that uncertainty with Brandon Wimbush and Ian Book. But his performance last week really impressed me. And I think, too, with a mobile quarterback, you have to be worried about injury. Brandon Wimbush takes a lot of hits, but he actually said this week that's something that he's worked on, that he feels that that's part of his progression, that he knows now when to slide, when to get out of bounds, rather than take those unnecessary hits.
That's fine if you can see the hits coming. There were hits last week he couldn't see coming, and with the offensive tackles, there may be more of those, and that's why I sell on Wimbush starting every game. I don't think it'll happen.
All right, our next one, Brandon Wimbush will have more passing touchdowns than rushing touchdowns.
I will buy that because I think they're going to try to run him less this year, and I think with the development of the Irish receiving core this year, I think you'll see him throw more touchdowns than run.
We also saw just last week in the Michigan game that when the Irish got down into those short yardage goal line situations, they actually pulled Brandon Wimbush and put Ian Book in. He just handed the ball off to Jafar Armstrong, and Armstrong did the rest. But still, that'll definitely cut down on Wimbush's rushing touchdowns as well. So, yeah, I'm going to buy that too.
So will Jafar Armstrong lead Notre Dame in rushing yards at the end of the season?
You know, I think he will. You talked about, or he talked about, just how he doesn't get tired, how he works so hard in practice, so that way come game day, he's ready to go. Coach Kelly actually compared him to Theo Riddick over the summer, and so I think he will. I think when it comes to November and everyone else's legs are tired and he's still fresh and ready to go, I think Jafar Armstrong leads the Irish in rushing.
Here's the thing. Brandon Wimbush does carry the ball a lot, and I think Jafar Armstrong, as the season goes along, will wind up splitting carries with not only Tony Jones but Dexter Williams once he finds his way out of the doghouse. So I will sell on that one.
All right. Our next one, Notre Dame will have a first-team All-American selection. What do you think?
I buy that because I think one of those offensive linemen, either Sam Mustipher or the birthday boy, Alex Bars, you're not a 46 Sports follower, but I give you a birthday shout-out anyway. One of them is going to get that on.
I'm going to sell it. The offensive line, somewhat young, a little inexperienced. I know Bars and Mustipher do have all of that experience. I'm tempted to say possibly Julian Love, maybe Tavon Coney. But first-team All-American, one of the best at that position in the country, I'm going to sell.
Notre Dame runs the table in September. Buy or sell?
I'm going to buy that one. And really, it all comes down to Stanford. Last game of September, they should beat Ball State handily. They should beat Vanderbilt next week and Wake Forest the week after that. So it all comes down to another Saturday night showdown right here at Notre Dame Stadium against Stanford. I think they beat Stanford and finish September 4-0.
I wish we had this question next week because then I'll have seen Stanford played USC. But I'm going to sell. David Shaw's had success against Brian Kelly in the past. They play a very physical nature. I'm going to sell on that.
All right, Notre Dame will play in a New Year's Day Bowl.
I'm buying that. They played in a New Year's Day Bowl last year, and I think they're a better team this year.
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't say New Year's Six Bowl, as you said. They played in a New Year's Day last year, and they just went 9-3. I'm buying that as well, but I actually do think it's going to be a New Year's Six Bowl.
So does Notre Dame make the college football playoff?
I think it's still far too early to say. They looked good last week. They definitely impressed me. But it's week 2 of the college football season. So much can happen, and they've got a really difficult schedule come November. I'm selling this right now.
Okay, I was going to say it's very simple. You either buy it or sell it. I told you last week I think they're going 10-2. I don't think that's good enough to make the playoff, so I sell as well.
All right. We are just about halfway on the countdown. Still a lot left to share with you.
Up next, I break down the Irish offensive line, something Michigan couldn't do during the season opener. The good and the not so good when the countdown returns in 2 minutes. Head coach Mike New and his Ball State Cardinals have migrated north for their first ever trip inside Notre Dame Stadium. The boys from Muncie made the 145-mile trek with big dreams on their minds, hoping to shock the Irish in the world.
But Brian and his bunch plan to play Dream Crushers this afternoon. The 8th-ranked team in the land has huge plans of its own in 2018, and they know none of that happens if they don't send Ball State back south with a loss. Back inside the countdown with WHME Sports Director Chuck Freeby, I'm Alex Wilcox.
After losing Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey to the NFL draft, a lot of people wondered how good this Irish offensive line would be. Well, based on the evidence presented last week, it would appear the jury's still out. First, the good. The veterans performed as you would expect them to. Look at center Sam Mustipher and guard Alex Bars open the hole on Jafar Armstrong's first touchdown run. Then on the second touchdown run, watch Bars pull, and drive the linebacker to the end zone, although run blocking was solid.
I mean, they're physical up front. I'm a highly touted defense that I think we handled pretty well. Obviously, there were some mistakes that we made that we need to clean up, that we will clean up.
I felt like we got out to a good start as offense. It's just really, as an offensive lineman, we need to make sure that we're protecting Brandon better. He got touched too many times on Saturday night.
Indeed, pass protection was a problem, particularly for the offensive tackles. Granted, Liam Eichenberg and Robert Hainsey may not face defensive ends as good as Michigan's the rest of the season, but if Brandon Wimbush is going to stay healthy, he can't keep taking these kinds of hits.
Going into the game, we knew they're a really good defense, so there's always going to be bad plays, there's going to be stuff, but that's college football, there's always going to be adversity. Yeah, I mean, you just have to go back, next play, move on, and I think we did that.
The final verdict truly won't come until 12 games are played. What will make the Irish good is developing the talent they have, and that's the task that falls on new offensive line coach Jeff Quinn.
If you don't have that enthusiasm and that passion and deep-rooted love, how do you expect everybody else around you that you're influencing and impacting? And as a coach, that's what my role is, to teach you, but also to bring the very best out from you, right? To bring the best out of you. And to do that, you have to have passion and energy and effort.
And perhaps that's the best thing for the Irish moving forward. This is not a unit that's satisfied with its performance last Saturday. They don't want to just win. They want to dominate.
Yeah, we've had an awesome week of practice, just playing fast, playing physical, communicating well up front, and I think we've really done that, so looking forward to this week.
Now, there are some other big tests, but I like the fact that this line has 3 more weeks to gel before it faces its next-ranked team, that Stanford bunch that we referred to. If there is a concern, Alex, it is depth. This unit may have the least of any area on the team. So for the Irish to be good or even great, they're going to have to stay healthy.
And it's so weird to think about the Irish offensive line not having depth because this has been a strength of theirs for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, there's still so much more to bring you this afternoon on the Countdown.
Up next, the Irish safeties were a huge weakness last season. So what have they changed so far in 2018? They tell us.
And here's another Subway trivia question. Notre Dame defensive end Khalid Kareem was named the Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Week after his impressive 8-tackle night against Michigan. Who was the last Irish player to win a Walter Camp Player of the Week award? The answer in 2 minutes on the Countdown.
Here is your Subway trivia answer.
Khalid Kareem won the Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Week award after his stellar game against Michigan. And you don't have to go back too far to find the last Irish winner. Josh Adams got the weekly award after the NC State game last year. Adams broke the 200-yard barrier against the Wolfpack, including a 77-yard scoring scamper, leading Notre Dame to a 35-14 win.
Last year, the Irish had one of the best defenses in the country, but the Irish safeties were the weakest link.
The Countdown's Mark Skoll Jr. joins us now. And Mark, how's the mindset changed for the Irish safeties since last season?
Yeah, Chuck, 2017 didn't go exactly as planned for the Notre Dame safeties. The position group finished the season with 0 turnovers and only 5 pass breakups. However, 2018 is a new year, and the Irish safeties expect their play to be much improved from last season.
The spotlight always shines on the Irish safeties.
You have to have that mentality of it's either me or them, and I think we all do a great job of having that mentality.
But that doesn't mean the light is always positive. Last season, Notre Dame safeties didn't record an interception for the first time since Era's first season in 1964.
You got guys who played some snaps last year who learned from their mistakes. And on-the-job training is sometimes the best training, but also sometimes it's the roughest training.
That rough training came with harsh criticism, but the Irish safeties never lost faith.
We kept it in-house and we just continued to work because we knew what we had in the room and we knew that we could be pretty dominant as long as we stayed together.
It paid off in week 1. The Irish secondary didn't allow a Michigan touchdown through the air. Only 3 Wolverine passes traveled more than 20 yards.
Everybody won't be on every day, and we know that, but we try to feed off each other and continue the energy, keep the energy up.
One of those guys who really brought energy against Michigan, Alohi Gilman. The transfer showing no rust, playing in his first game since December of 2016.
Thought I did some things to spark the defense a little bit in coverage and tackling, but I still got a lot to work on, and this is a great building block for me going into the season.
Brian Kelly says Gilman adds so much to his defense.
Alohi has got great football instincts, and when you have those instincts, you build it into eye discipline and technique and all the things that fit within our system to get the complete player.
Now Gilman says this is only the beginning of what the safeties can do.
Incomplete, broken up by the safety Gilman.
The scary thing is we still haven't even reached our peak, our potential, and I'm excited to get this thing rolling.
For which Notre Dame safety will record that coveted first interception of 2018. There really isn't a big competition to see who gets there first. The Irish say the interceptions will come as long as they continue to do their job. Guys, I'll join you down there in a sec. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Mark Skoll Jr. from high above Notre Dame Stadium. We're getting closer to the fourth quarter of the countdown, but we've still got a lot in the tank.
Up next, it's Sports Beat on the Countdown as Darren Pritchett joins us. Last week, Darren said to watch Jafar Armstrong as a breakout player. So who is he going with this week? His answer and much more in 2 minutes on the Countdown.
We are back with Sports Beat on the Countdown as the host of Weekday and Game Day Sports Beat and Inside Notre Dame Football and 4 other shows probably. Darren Pritchett joins us now. Darren, was there an area that exceeded your expectations last week for the Irish?
The game kind of played out the way I thought, but let me point out the safety position. Jalen Elliott, I didn't know how he was going to factor into this year, played a very solid game for the Irish. And Nick Coleman, we thought he was going to be a safety moving to nickel. He looked very good at the nickel, so the defensive backfield, a pleasant surprise.
Now, last week, you named Jafar Armstrong as your breakout player to watch. First off, good call. 2 touchdowns in his collegiate
Khalid
debut.
Kareem, now don't forget that.
All right, Khalid Kareem as well, yeah. So you were 2 for 2 there. Anyone you got your eye on this week?
I'm just going to say Houston Griffith, the freshman, defensive back, just because he's probably going to get some playing time today. I thought he might be a nickel, but with Coleman playing so well, he might be a guy that sees some time in place of Jalen Elliott today.
Well, and that said, there could be quite a few freshmen who we see for the first time today, couldn't there?
You think there might be a roar if Phil Dracovic, the freshman quarterback, gets on the field? We'll probably know when that happens.
Hey, I'm curious. Notre Dame playing Ball State today. Here's a MAC school. They've played a few, Miami of Ohio, Western Michigan. How do you feel about Notre Dame scheduling MAC teams?
See, I have no problem with it. First off, you can't schedule 12 SEC teams. The goal is to get to the playoff. You got to have some winnable games. And I did some homework for you.
Oh boy.
Let me get out my cheat sheet.
Somebody finally did.
Notre Dame opponents today, they're playing Wagner, Samford, and Townsend. And SEC teams are playing Arkansas State, Southern Illinois, East Tennessee State, Southeastern Louisiana, and Alabama State.
It's murderer's row right there.
Why do you have a problem with Southern Illinois?
The Salukis. Come on now.
So are you worried at all about a letdown game today?
If this was November, I would, but it's early in the year, guys. The bumps and bruises aren't there yet. They're undefeated. The goals are still in front of them, so maybe for a couple of minutes you're thinking, we're playing Ball State. But I think with everything in front of this team, they'll be locked in.
I'm going to ask you a couple of the buy or sell questions that we had for Mr. Wilcox here. Buy or sell, the Irish run the table in September.
Buy. But tough against Stanford. That's not going to be easy.
Buy or sell, Brandon Wimbush has more passing TDs than rushing TDs this year.
This year?
Yeah.
I'm still going to go with passing.
So you're buying.
Yeah, I'm going to buy that. There's going to be a lot of guys running the football.
And finally, we put O'Malley through this drill because last week the big question was, does Notre Dame even beat Michigan? Today the question is, do they cover? I know you're not worried about the spread, but it's 34.5.
I feel like I need to say, you are looking live. I feel like Brent Musburger all of a sudden. What is it, 34.5 or so? Well, I picked on my radio show 51-19.
So they don't. Let me do the math for you.
Under.
You did homework, I'll do math. Still a lot more to come on the countdown. We appreciate you being with us. But up next, We'll catch up with the man who authored The Catch last week.
I'll trace Chris Fink's incredible route to that national spotlight when the countdown returns in 2 minutes.
Earlier in the show, Alex promised something for you at 3:19. It's 3:19. Here are the final results of this week's Lock Monday Auto Group Irish fan poll on WNDU.com.
We asked you, should Notre Dame play a team from Indiana every season? Most of you, 69%, would like to see the Boilers, Hoosiers, and Cardinals play the Irish often. Only 31% of you say no. Thanks for voting in the Lock Monday Auto Group Irish fan poll on WNDU.com.
Folks, there's a play from last week's game we're going to see highlights of decades from now.
And the man who made it happen has quite the story getting there.
Chris Fink down there. Fink, did he catch it? Yes! Touchdown Irish! Incredible grab!
By now, Chris Fink is a household name, leading the Irish in receiving against Michigan and doing his best Randy Moss impression in the process. But it's been a long time coming for Fink.
Heading into my senior year of high school, I didn't really expect that I'd be playing college football. I didn't have anybody, knocking on my door asking me to do it.
Fink got exactly 0 scholarship offers. Colleges weren't exactly tripping over themselves for an undersized triple-option wide receiver with 12 catches to his name. The only reason he caught the eye of Notre Dame coaches was because they were recruiting his high school teammate and close friend, Nick Coleman. Brian Kelly offered Fink the opportunity to walk on, and with few other options, Fink accepted. Even as a walk-on, Fink always believed he could make an impact, but it wasn't easy.
I had built some confidence, I think, in the summer and through camp that I felt comfortable with my abilities and that I was able to compete with players on this team as a walk-on. So even when other people don't recognize it, you feel it in yourself. So when you got to pay your dues, but it's also frustrating when you know that you're capable of more.
He spent his freshman year on the scout team. The coaches at one point even tried switching him to corner.
I'm not a comfortable defensive player at all. I didn't think I had the skill set to play defense at the college level, especially as a freshman. And I just got, really inside my own head thinking about it, will I ever go back to receiver? You start projecting the future, like maybe I'll get buried on defense. And that was one time in particular I would say was really hard for me.
Eventually, his skills got noticed. His sophomore year, he earned a scholarship. Now he's starting and making big plays in even bigger games.
He mossed him. He took it away from the defensive back.
Jerome Bettis tweeted at me, which was also pretty cool.
As I said, it's been a long time coming for Chris Fink, but he wants everyone to know he's not done yet.
At times, if I think back to it like that, it definitely is a good feeling just knowing that I've come a long way and all the frustrations and hard work have paid off in a sense. But then when I put myself back in the presence, I always want more, and I never want to plateau, and I always want to keep climbing.
Now, my senior year, I was a student coaching assistant. I worked with the defense and helped run the scout team offense, and that was when Chris Fink was on the scout team offense as a true freshman walk-on. He was juking out Joe Schmidt and Jalen Smith. I had a pretty good idea then that he was going to be something special.
Very good player. You know what? We've got a lot to come. Keys to win. X Factor's predictions. The Four Winds Casino, what to watch for, is next. Back on the countdown, Mark comes into the tent for the Four Winds Casino, what to watch for. We start with Irish keys to the game. Alex?
Just show up. If Notre Dame plays their game and doesn't play down to their opponent, this game should be over by halftime.
My key to the game is keep the foot on the pedal. You got to start off strong early and finish strong late.
Well, starting off strong is the key to this game. You want to put this Ball State team away early. Don't give them any chance to build confidence like their basketball team did against Mike Bray's squad. You got to make sure the Cardinals aren't chirping today. Okay, X Factors, who'd you go with?
I'm going with Drew Tranquil, the senior fifth-year captain, and not so much for his play on the field, so that will be important, but more so for his leadership, making sure that the guys are mentally locked in, ready to go, and not taking Ball State lightly.
My X factor is wide receiver Chase Claypool. He made an amazing tackle on special teams last week, finished with 3 receptions for 47 yards. I expect him to have at least 100 yards today.
Well, I'm thinking along the same lines you are, but I'm not going with Claypool. I'm going with Miles Boykin. Remember Miles Boykin? He made the big catch against LSU. last year in the bowl game, and then he went on the milk carton last week. We got to get him off of that, and we'll see what happens when Mr. Boykin goes up against this Ball State secondary. We are back with some of the pregame ceremonies here inside Notre Dame Stadium. Then we'll offer our predictions for today's game in 90 seconds on the countdown. The colors today have been presented by University Executive Vice President John Affleck Graves, who is retiring at the end of the school year. And now the University of Notre Dame band gets ready to honor America as we have a flyover from 4 U.S. Air Force T-6 Tigers of the 37th Flying Training Squadron. And America is honored with the plane of the Star-Spangled Banner. Those 4 U.S. Air Force T-6 Tigers of the 37th Flying Training Squadron have flown over Notre Dame Stadium. We're back to our Four Winds Casino what to watch for. Prediction time. Let's start with the vertically challenging Alex Wilcox.
Notre Dame should blow out Ball State, and I've got that reflected in my score. 6 touchdowns is the difference, 52-10 Irish over Ball State.
I'll go 42-10 Irish. They only give up one defensive touchdown just like they did against Michigan.
The big question I've asked everybody, do they cover the spread? I say no. I think the Cardinals can represent today and at least get 2 touchdowns, but not much more than that. 45-14 Notre Dame. So now we turn it over to Mike Tirico and Doug Flirty for NBC coverage of the Irish and the Cardinals. Alex and I are back with post-game highlights and analysis on News Center 16.